Hi everyone, I am Mrs. Sharp and I am really excited to welcome you to our first session on natural hazards. Now, I know that I'm biased, but as a geographer, I think this is one of the most exciting modules that we can study, and I am super excited that it's me that gets to teach it to you. Now, please can I ask you to put away your phones, anything else that you might find distracting during the session, so that we can get on, learn as much as possible, and have a really great time. See you in a sec. Hi, okay, so let's get started with today's session. Now, all you are going to need is a pen, a pencil, a piece of paper. That is literally it. So if you need to go and get those things, pause the video now, and then when you come back, we will write the title. Now, the title for today's session is What are natural hazards? And it's a question, so it's going to need a question mark on the end. Now I'm going to pause you for a second just so that you can write down the title, and then let's get cracking on today's session. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do today is that we are going to define what actually makes a natural hazard. So a natural hazard is a natural event that threatens people or has the potential to cause damage, destruction, and death. For example, we've got earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tropical storms and landslides. So could I get you to write that down, please? And then take a look at the photograph that is on the screen. Now, what I'm showing you here are two photographs that are events that have taken place that could be considered natural hazards. So what I'd like you to do is have a really good look at the two photos. And thinking back to our definition, why would you classify each of those events as a natural hazard? Now, I'm going to give you about 20 seconds just to have a good think about this, and then we'll go through some of the suggestions that I've got. Okay, so what we can see in the picture on the left is a picture of the after effects of Hurricane Katrina. Now, as you can see in that photograph, one of the trees has been blown over by the wind and it's caused damage to the roof of that building. So we could classify Hurricane Katrina as a natural hazard because of the damage that it's caused to property. Now, if we then have a look at picture 2, so the one on the right-hand side, which is of the earthquake, we can see that actually, as a result of the earthquake, that building has collapsed. Now, one of the biggest problems with earthquakes is that they can't be predicted. So there's every likelihood that there might have been people in that building when it collapsed. And sadly, they might have been crushed by the roof or by the rubble that was falling. So that's why both of these images could be classed as natural hazards. Okay, now it's over to you for a second. And what I might need you to do is just to pause the video to define the term natural hazard. So I want you to put it into your own words now. Now I've got a couple of sentence starters just to get you going. So we've got a natural event that it can cause damage, and then an example of a natural hazard is. So pause the video, and if you could write out your own definition of a natural hazard, that would be great. Make sure that you cover up the one that you did at the beginning, otherwise it's too easy, okay? Right, so did you get a natural event that threatens people or has the potential to cause damage, destruction, and death? So if you got those, you can give yourself a big tick. And then an example of a natural hazard, you could have said a tropical storm, a hurricane, an earthquake, a volcano. Any of those things would be absolutely fine. But give yourself a tick as well. Okay, so now we're going to move on. And we are going to have a look at the two different types of natural hazard. Now, the first type is what we call geological hazards, or tectonic, which I've put in brackets. Now, I want you to say the word geological after me, because it's a bit of a funny word and it is quite hard to say. And this is kind of warming you up for the next word that I'm going to ask you to say. So say geological. Okay, say it again. Geological. Good. So a geological hazard is a hazard that is caused by the movement of tectonic plates. Okay, so when tectonic plates move, they create the following hazards. So that we can have earthquakes, we could have volcanoes, or we could even have tsunamis. Now, tsunamis is one of those that people often get confused because a tsunami is essentially a flood. But the tsunami is caused by the tectonic plates moving and that release of energy. So that's why it's classed as a geological or tectonic hazard. Now, the second one, this word is even harder to say, okay? So I'm going to say it, we'll make sure I try and say it properly, and you are then going to say it after me. So it's meteorological. So meteorological. Say it after me. Meteorological. Okay, good. Now, it's definitely not an easy one, okay? But what it actually essentially means is hazards that take place in our atmosphere. So anything that happens above the surface of the Earth, all the way up to our atmosphere. And a meteorological hazard is caused by weather and climate. So when we talk about meteorological hazards, we could be talking about tropical storms. And obviously there are 3 names for tropical storms. So that could be a typhoon, a cyclone, or a hurricane. We're talking about droughts if there's not enough rainfall. And we can be talking about flooding. Now, these 2 are really, really important. So please can I ask you to write down geological tectonic hazards and then the definition, and then meteorological hazards and the definition. If you need to pause the video, please do, okay? Don't ever feel that you need to rush this all down. Take your notes as neatly as you'd like to. They're going to stay up on the screen for just a minute. Okay, so my next activity then is for you to define the 2 different types of natural hazard and to give an example of each. And like I said before, try and cover up where you've written down the proper definition and see if you can do it from memory. If you have to sneak a peek, then that's fine, but see if you can do it from memory. What is a geological hazard and what is a meteorological hazard? Now, I'm going to put a little bit of help there for you, just in case you need it. And pause this video, take your time, think it through. Okay, so let's check our answers. Did you get? So geological hazards are hazards that are caused by the movement of tectonic plates. An example of a geological hazard is an earthquake. So give yourself a tick where you got both of those correct. Also might be worth underlining tectonic plates, okay? Because it's really important that we remember all geological hazards are caused by tectonic plate movement. Okay, and then the second one, we've got meteorological hazards. So meteorological hazards are hazards that are caused by weather and climate. An example of a meteorological hazard is a tropical storm. So if you'd have said drought, if you'd have said flood, hurricane, you could have anything there just as your example. Right, give yourself a tick. And as I say, underline those key terms, so caused by weather and climate. Okay, and let's move on. So I want you to have a look at both of these amazing images. So one of these images shows a geological hazard and one of them shows a meteorological hazard. Now, I imagine it's fairly obvious, but I would like you to decide, is A, the meteorological or the geological hazard? And is B, the meteorological or the geological hazard? Okay, so fairly obvious. The option that is A, sorry, I was about to call it the box on the left. The option that is A, that shows our meteorological hazard. And hopefully most of you are thinking that's a flood. So that was in fact a flood that took place in Cumbria back in 2010. And then this incredible image that we've got for image B, that is, you are correct, that is your geological hazard. Now, that is an example of a volcanic eruption, and it's absolutely beautiful, but very, very hazardous. So both of these events have the potential to cause damage to people, property, and even death on occasion. Okay, so this is our main task for the session, and it's a fairly simple one, just to ease you in gently, okay? So what I want you to do is to create a table, and then I want you to categorize the following hazards as either geological or meteorological. So to keep it nice and simple, there are 3 of each. And then, if you've done that, I want you to challenge yourself. Have a think about the images that I've shown you during the session. Can you explain what impact you think one of those hazards might have? So how might, for example, a drought affect people? How might an earthquake affect people or houses? So have a look now, pause the video. This is the main task. This is when you're supposed to pause the video, and we'll go through the answers in just a second. Okay, so as I said, it was a fairly simple task. Geological tectonic hazards, we've got volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and tsunamis. And then our meteorological hazards are drought, hurricane, and floods. Fantastic. Right, today has been an amazing session. There's just a couple more bits to go through, and I will see you in just a sec. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our session today. Well done for all the learning that you've done. I'm really impressed with all the hard work that you've put in. As I say, it was a fairly simple introduction to natural hazards, but we've got these 2 new amazing key terms, geological and meteorological. And now the last thing that I would like to ask you to do today is this. Please, can you go through your notes and what it is that you've learned, and just highlight, star, underline, however you prefer to do it, the 3 most important things that you think you have learned today. Right, well done, and I will see you for session 2 next week.